Good morning, everybody. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, good morning.
Okay, so time for getting started. So yesterday we started with unit testing with X unit. We tried understanding the concepts of unit testing, what it is, what it does, where it is required, some best practices, and then the implementation we saw with the help of X unit framework for C sharp based applications. Now, when I say C sharp based applications, they can be any C sharp applications. We tried with console application, but practically, if you see, those were class libraries. Correct. So, class library might be applicable for console, Windows based applications, web based applications, API based applications, anything. Likewise, the API controllers, MVC controllers also can be tested. There is no problem with that. Okay. So we'll be building our today's session on the top of the same, where we are going to start with the concept of test doubles and mocking. So what type of test doubles are available here? Like we have stubs, mocks, fakes, etc. What are they? What they do? How do we use them to isolate code under the test environment? Then exactly how to write the mock object to test code with the external dependencies. And precisely we'll be using mock framework for that, MOQ. Then we'll move on to the next section, that is testing strategies and best practices. So different testing techniques or strategies are there, like boundary testing, equivalence class partitioning, mutation testing. Then we'll be moving on to code coverage metrics. What is that? What it is required for? Where it is required for? How to use the code coverage metrics to measure the effectiveness of tests. Then we'll move on to discuss about, in fact, see the implementation of a more complex unit test created using the testing strategies and the best practices. Then we'll move on to advanced topics where mainly we'll be focusing on unit testing the asynchronous code and the legacy code. Okay. So let's get started with the first section, test doubles and mocking. Mocking, I'm sure some of you might have already used with some of the framework, so you might be aware of. So exactly what it is.
Instead of injecting real dependency, it's kind of create a virtual dependency and create the object that you want to.
Temporary dependency, which may not have the real object and always returns the positive values, expected values. So let's say this
Yeah.
is one component. Let's say this is another component. And this component depends on this. This is one, this is two. One depends on two. Correct. Now, when I create unit test or component one, in order to make the functionality work over here, run over here, and produce the test results, typically I would need component two to be in place because component one features depends on component two. Isn't it looking like a typical three-tier architecture requirement? If we assume this component two is DAL and unit test component, or the component being unit tested, component one is BL, where DAL is data access layer and BL is business layer. Isn't it looking the same kind of setup? right? Now, practically, this component might be being written by team A. This component might be being written by team B because of different dependencies that the teams may have or different competencies the teams may have, right? These people probably are more aware of the database features, whereas team working on business logic might be more aware of the domain. That's why the separation we might have done. So qualified people only will be working on the specific areas. Correct? Is it necessary that the DAL will be finished ahead of time before the business layer? Not always. DAL might be an under progress work where the BL might get ready. Yes. Yes. Now, once BL team declares that my work is ready or our work is ready, the point is, don't you think before they actually declare that our work is ready, the code within the BL has been already unit tested? We just discussed the same thing yesterday, right? Your code has to be tested before it goes into the build cycle, correct? Whether it is manual build cycle or automation based build cycle with CI, continuous integration. You need all the code to be unit tested. And so is BL. Yes or no? Problem here is BL can be unit tested if DAL is ready. Till that time, the BL team needs to wait. But don't you think this will be wastage of time and this will hamper the productivity of the team members working in BL? Because if they are done, they should just move ahead and work on some other business layer components of the same application or maybe another application. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, right.
So, thing is, with this dependency in place, how do I test? This is where I need to create a fake or mock of the DAL component. So maybe the writers of BL create this fake component, which looks exact replica of 2 in terms of functionality, and it just provides all the positive outputs to component 1. May not be the real one, but yeah, near to real one. And temporarily, this component can be linked to component 1 rather than linking component, the original component 2, the actual component 2. And then the unit test can successfully run. Assuming that whenever the real component 2 comes alive into production or into build cycle, it will always be providing me the positive results as per the expectation so that I can focus only on what I have written into this component. Understand? So for this only, for creating these fake or mock objects only, we use something called as test doubles. This is just like films. There is some scene which needs to be shot, not only the action scene, I would say. There is some important scene that needs to be shot, but the lead actor is not available because of other engagements for some reason. Do the makers keep on waiting infinitely for that actor to be available? Will this be profitable for them? More the delays in the filmmaking, more are the losses. Am I right?
Yes.
Correct. So what they do? Probably they make use of some lookalike who may not be 100% same, but pretty similar in terms of the body structure, height, weight, etc. Similar face cut, if not exactly same, right? And they shoot the entire scene probably with different angles and maybe some camera effects or after effects so that the final version looks exactly I'm sorry looks exactly like if the actual actor only has played that scene. Yes or no?
Yes.
There is one specific movie which I remember, Fast and Furious 7. During the shooting, only one of the lead actor actually died. There were some important scenes pending to be shot for him. So the makers used couple of that actor's brothers to complete those scenes. And while watching the movie, no one realizes that, okay, this is not the same person. This is someone different because they use effects also, right? Probably some voice modulation also was done so that their voice also looks similar to the original, right? And that's where the term doubles originate. For action scenes also, many of the times, the specialist uh, action men are used who are called as body doubles. Difficult scenes are done by them and then superimposed on the actual actor. So that while watching the movie, it looks like we are looking at those action scenes, difficult action scenes done by the same original actor only, right? From there, this term has been taken. Here we are saying we are doing this mocking or faking or uh, look-alike for testing some code. So we call them as test doubles. Understood? Yes.
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 So what are the different types of test doubles available? First is stubs. Second is mocks. Third is fakes. All are test doubles, so they have a lot of similarity between them, right? What is that similarity? It is that they are essential tools in the realm of the unit testing to help isolate the code being tested and ensure that your tests are both reliable and focused on specific functionality. Test doubles are used to simulate the behavior of any external dependency or objects within the code that you are testing, right? Well, let's see what exactly stubs, mocks, and fakes are. What is the purpose of them? What are the different use cases where they would be applicable or they would be used? And some examples. So if I take stubs first, stubs are essentially used to replace the real objects or functions with more simplified and straightforward implementations, maybe containing some hard code also that return the predefined values, because of which they help isolate the code under test from external dependencies and allow you to control their behavior during testing. Understood?
Yes.
Purpose of mocks. Mocks are used to verify the interactions. between your code and external dependencies. They essentially record the method calls and the parameter values, allowing you to assert that the expected interactions occur. Right? So stubs might contain some data also along with functionality. Right? Most of the time they just return the function results. So they were more data focused, whereas mocks simulate the function execution. Okay. Now what are fakes? Fakes purpose is that these fakes are actual real implementations of the external components. You do have the component in place, the actual component in place, but not the actual code. They are simplified and optimized for testing only. Fakes are typically used when you need to replace the complex or slow external dependencies with some lightweight alternatives so that your test can run pretty quickly. As part of one of the best practices, we actually discussed that your test cases must run as quickly as possible, right? I hope this is clear.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Moving on to the next comparison point, that is use cases. Starting with stubs. So you can use stubs when you want to simulate the response of external services, databases, or any method that returns a value, not the void methods. Stubs ensure that your tests focus solely on the code that you are testing without being affected by the behavior of the external dependencies or external components. Clear? Move on to mocks use cases. Mocks are helpful when you want to ensure that your code under the testing correctly interacts with external services or objects. They help you verify the behavior of your code in terms of method calls and arguments passed. Okay. And then the use case for fakes. You can use fakes when the real external components are impractical to be used in a test case or test environment, such as you are working with production database or payment gateway, which might take a lot of time to respond. In order to make your test case run faster, you might create the fake component which returns the same results, positive results only, but without interacting with the external dependencies, as it provides a simplified alternative that behaves similar to the real component, but without any complexity or delay. Understood? Yes.
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 Now let's talk about examples for stuff. Just assume you have a class that interacts with a database, something like data access layer. You can create a stub for the database connection to return predefined data, maybe hard-coded one, instead of actually connecting to a database during testing, right? So static objects you can create, that data is returned, something like what we did with our API, web API, correct? And then we created the real API communicating with the real database. Functionality wise, if you see, the API behavior was same in both cases, right? So with static in-memory data, we actually were using a stub created for testing the API, right? Whereas the real implementation was with database interaction. Now let's talk about an example for mock. If you have a service that sends an email or number of emails for various reasons or various actions, you can create a mock email service to confirm that the send email method, assume that the method is with the name send email, was invoked with the correct recipient and the content. So you just need the response that email has been sent successfully, right? Mocks in this case will be able to help you with the void methods also, means the methods not returning anything. Let's talk about an example for fakes. Instead of using the production database for testing, you can create an in-memory database fake that provides a fast and predictable data storage for your test, which we also tried out while working with Web API, right? So static data in memory that represented stubs, then in-memory database represented the implementation of fakes. Though we were not actually conducting the unit test, but as a developer, we were looking to debug and test run that web API functionality, right? So we already used stubs, we already used fakes in a way. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Sanket, for steps, what we have already used, maybe any example?
we created the static data in one of the web API, right?
Yes, yes,
Static list we created, if you remember. That was a kind of a stub only, right?
yes, yes,
Which simulated that the data might be coming from a database. Correct?
yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay, now let's talk about the approach that is generally followed to use the test doubles for isolating the code that is being tested. So point number one, that should be taken care of with this general approach is first of all, identify dependencies. By dependencies, I'm specifically talking about external dependencies. You have to determine the external dependencies or components that your code interacts during the testing process. Because if you don't identify the dependencies correctly, how will you identify their behavior, expected behavior? How will you decide whether I'm looking for stubs, mocks, or fakes, right? So first process or first step in the process is identifying the dependencies correctly. Next is choosing the test doubles. So here you have to select the most suitable testable or appropriate testable based on the purpose of the functionality provided by the external dependencies, based on the discussion that we already had before this, right? So you can use the stubs to control the behavior of dependencies, mocks to verify the interactions, and fakes to simplify the complex dependencies, right? Then third is replace dependencies. So while coding, you might have actually put the dependency, which is real one, but for unit test, substitute the real dependencies with the chosen testable within your test environment. For this, you may use the dependency injection, which might be assisted by some framework also, like in .NET by default, we have Unity framework integrated for inversion of control and dependency injection already. Specifically, I'm talking about .NET Core. It's a built-in engine. You don't need to install anything for this. And alongside, you can actually introduce the mocking framework also. So again, which might give you stubs or fakes or mocks, whatever the testable you have chosen. Understood?
Yes.
Next is write tests. So you write your tests for your code to be tested with the help of the testables as and where required. Ensure that you cover various scenarios, including the boundaries and edge cases also, means extremes, for which we already had some discussion yesterday, right? Like I'm adding two numbers. What if those two integers are the largest value allowed by 32-bit integer? Or if one of them is the largest one? If I add something more to it, what will happen? That is something what we call as edge or boundary testing. Understand? Yes. Next step is execute the tests. So practically here you run your tests, which might have some assertions, which help you assert that the code under test is behaving as expected, where you might be using test doubles for isolating your code being tested from any external dependency or external influence. Understood?
Yes.
Think that it performs as intended, even when interacting with the external dependencies or services. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. So based on this information, now I'm looking to write something so that I can try out few things practically. I want to write a mock object to test the code with external dependencies. Our language will be C sharp. The testing framework will be XUnit, and mocking framework will be mock MOQ. Okay. And today I'll show you how to do this from the command line as well. From Visual Studio, we already saw something yesterday, right? Or if you are more comfortable with Visual Studio, let's use Visual Studio only. Just that the CLI commands you need to know. Okay. So let's say here I go for create new project. Class library. Next. UT underscore demo unit test with mock. Next. .NET 5 create let's rename this class1.cs. To I email service. Or let's say, first of all, I'll go with email sender as the class. Yes, so that the class is also renamed. If not, do it manually. Here I want a private read-only declaration of type I email service by the name email service. Okay. Let the error be there for now. We'll just fulfill that issue, I mean the requirement over here shortly, and the error will be removed. I have the constructor for the class over here, which will receive the dependency for our email service. So here I say there is I email service parameter coming in by the name email service, where I can just say this dot email service equals to email service in the constructor body. Then I have public bool send email method that takes in couple of parameters, string, recipient or receiver, and string message, which will be actually the part of the email body. As a good practice, I go for a try block where I say return email service dot send email recipient comma message. If any exception, catch it. Remove this throw statement from here. And here I want to return false. The exception object can be used for logging if you have configured some logging service as well. Correct? instead of displaying it on console, because here this is a class library which might be used by console app, web app, Windows app, mobile app, anything. So I cannot say console.writeLine or messagebox.show or anything similar. Practically, I should be logging this information. So we can put a comment, logging code goes here. And then at the end, we return false. Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay. Let's extract the interface over here. So I'll just use this light bulb arrow, generate interface I email service in new file. We do have a ready-made package also, netcore.mailkit. We can try this as well. I'll say install with package manager. So shortly the mailkit package should be displayed here and the available versions. That's strange why it's not showing. Yeah, I just put double quotes so that it will be more targeted search. Netcore mailkit. We can go ahead with latest stable version. As we can see, it's not in sync with the .NET version as such, right? So let's select latest table and get it installed. Okay, installed. Let's close this. Come back over here. Again, use Lightbulb, and this time you can just select the using netcore.mailkit.core option here, which will automatically add the required namespace here. Okay, now this interface may not have a method by the name send email. It might have just send, which is the case. So I say send. Again, the parameters are different for this. Mail to, I can put recipient there. Subject, I can either receive from the user by modifying the parameters here, or I can put if the subject is going to be same all the time. So I can put the subject hard coded as well. Then the message, rest of the parameters are all optional. So that should be it. This send method is not returning any value, true, false. So if this is successful, I'll just explicitly say return true. One and the same thing, right? One way is I use ready-made built-in feature, or I create my own interface named as email service and fulfill this. Either way, I I have a dependency on some external system. Yes or no?
Yes.
Let's save this. Let's build this to see the syntactical correctness. Build succeeded is shown, so that means the code is all good. You just go to Solution Explorer, right click on solution and add another project. So add new project, class library, next. I name this as,
Saket, one thing. While
yes.
creating new project for testing, we can add directly XUnit project there, right?
Yeah, if the
So all
template is available, you can use that also. So
okay.
the only advantage that you have is the packages required will be automatically installed. You don't need to search for them and install them.
Yes,
Otherwise,
right.
it's a class library project only. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So I give the name as UT underscore demo unit test with MOQ dot test as per the convention we discussed yesterday. Next, .NET 5 is the version. Create. Okay. Let's install the required packages here. If you have not used the correct template, directly class library if you have used, this is additional work you have to do. So I say manage NuGet packages, browse. We require XUnit. Latest stable version should be okay. Install. Okay. I accept. Then there are a couple of other packages that we installed yesterday. One was test host, Microsoft.testplatform.test host, right? Let's select this. Latest stable version for this also is okay. No problem with it. Install. Okay. I accept. Then one more package we installed, that is xunit.runner.visual studio. For this, the default 2.5 version didn't work for us. For .NET 5, it doesn't work. Hence, we downgraded to .NET, the package version 2.4.5. Let's select the same and click install. Okay. So far, in this test project, we have installed 3 packages. Same 3 packages which we worked with yesterday. XUnit, followed by Microsoft.testplatform.testhost, followed by xunit.runner.visual studio. For these 2 packages, we used latest stable version, whereas for xunit.runner.visual studio, we used 2.4.5, right? One more package we'll need this time, that is MOQ for mocking. So here comes MOQ. See the logo here. We can go ahead with latest stable version for this. Click install. Okay. And once it is installed, let's close this tab. Done. So 4 packages we have installed. I'll just expand this dependency list. You can just make sure you have installed the correct packages with correct versions. Just check. Done? Is it done? Let's right click on class1.cs, rename the file to email sender tests.cs. Click yes so that your class here also is renamed. If not, rename it manually. Here I say use xunit and then MOQ also I want to involve. There goes my first fact method, that is test method, public void send email underscore successful. Here I am looking to see that the email sending is successful. What is the behavior expected? I create a variable by the name email service mock equals new mock of type I email service. For this, obviously we need to add the project dependency here to the test project. So right click on dependencies for test project, add project reference. Select this project, demo unit test with mock, that is the original one. And import the namespace also for the same. So UT underscore demo unit test with MOQ. That will automatically detect email service. Oh yeah, email service again is not the part of this project rather. So maybe then what I can do is instead of this project dependency, I can install the package which we use to get email service. Let me remove this. The NuGet package we installed for email service was netcore.mailkit. So I add the same here. Right click on packages or dependencies, manage NuGet packages. For the test project, I'm doing this now. And this is the package I'm looking for, netcore.mailkit. Select latest stable version installed. Version should be same as what you have installed in the original project. Okay, let's close this. So instead of this, we'll be looking for netcore.mailkit.core namespace. So that the email service interface will be available. Right? So the mock object will be created. The real email service is not added as yet. Here I just say email service mock dot setup. With the help of Lambda expression, I'll be adding this. I mean the functionality for send email. Okay. So here I say service as I email service goes in. This method body. Here I say service dot send email or send method is there, right? Mock provides us a class called as 8, which allows, you can read the description, allows the specification of matching condition for an argument in a method invocation rather than a specific argument value. I need not specify the actual value or mock value. It will create one. So I say it dot is any. I need some value of type string. So I pass the generic type parameter as string and complete the method call for is any, comma. Same thing I'll do for subject. Same thing I'll get it done for message. Okay, so I believe this needs to be set without the expression body. No problem. I'll just get it cut from here, add it here, remove semicolon from the end, and arrange it this way. Okay. Yeah. So just put the other two parameter values as false, comma null. Optional parameters, the mock is not allowing. We can just provide the hard-coded values like this. Anyhow, if we don't pass them, they will be going with the default values only, right? And then here we say, let me break better readability. Here we say dot returns. I'm not getting returns. Maybe because the send method is white. So just wait for a moment. Okay, we'll just end it here. And I say var email sender equals new email sender. Oh, we will require the project reference also. So let's do it again. Right click on dependencies here, add project reference. This is the project. Okay. And using UT underscore demo unit test with MOQ so that the email sender class is detected. And as a dependency, I just pass email service dot, in fact, email service mock dot object. So whatever the mock object that has been prepared, it will be set up as the dependency. I'm injecting the dependency practically. Then here I'm looking for the the result. Maybe here I can just go for try. And here I see email sender dot send email. This actually returns true, so I can just avoid try. Then I can say where result equals to email sender dot send email. Some dummy email I'll put test at demo.com, comma, the message. Let's say hello there. Hello there will be the message body. And then comes the assertion. So assert dot true result. I'm expecting true result here. If it is false, the test will fail. And then I say email service mock dot verify service goes in service dot send test at demo.com. Same input I'm giving here as well, comma, hello there, comma, yeah. So this is the overload I'm looking for. How many times this needs to be verified? What this verify method does is verifies that a specific invocation matching the given expression was performed on the mock. Okay. So here I'll say I want this to be tested once. So times dot once. Okay. Okay. Yeah. This requires the message as well. What message we are giving here? Test mail. I'll put that as subject. Directly using send mail, correct? What's wrong now? Yeah, the other two parameters. So false, comma, null. As the mocking doesn't allow optional parameters not to be passed. It treats optional parameters also as mandatory ones. Okay, so this is our first test or test method, or in terms of mock, we call it as fact. Now let's copy this. I want to test the failure as well, where I'm expecting an exception actually. So here I say send mail failure. Is the fact name. Email service mock object is created like this only. Setup is like this only. There is no change here. Okay, send doesn't return anything, it's void. So no returns parameter. Var result equals to email sender dot send email. Same input I give here. Assert dot false is what I want. When the service actually is failing. Okay. And here goes the rest of the thing. So this is again the same. Now the actual service whenever created should return me true when successful, false when unsuccessful, right? My test case is ready with different inputs. It is already working. And for me, with mock object being used, all the test cases will actually be passed. That is what the intention of mock is, right? So that I don't depend on the actual implementation of my email service here. Yes or no? My code will not change for test case. It is just that I replace the mock object with the real object. And for this, again, I can use dependency injection frameworks like Unity or something else to automate this instead of hard coding the object over here. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
So let's go to test menu and say run all tests. Build performed. Successful is returning that it has passed. Failure is actually returning true. Expected is false. Maybe because of that, it has failed. So one thing I need to check here, I might have made a mistake here. Uh, I want the send email to return false. Now, because the void method is there, it's not returning false there. Maybe what I can do is it this way, test at demo2, test at demo2. And here in email sender service, I can actually put an additional code. This is just like validation code of the input, right? So if recipient is equal to or is not equal to test at demo.com, it is something else. I want to throw invalid operation exception with message invalid recipient. Throw new.
So, Saket, but this is not the proper one, right? Because the email
Yeah. So
service has to.
yeah, right now I'm just simulating this here
Okay,
because basically we are using a built-in service from one of the framework, right? Which is not
okay,
giving me true false value. It is returning void. If we see the send method, it is a void method. If it itself returns me true false, I don't require this actually.
okay. Can
I just
can
need to
we?
say return email service dot send, right?
Yeah. Can we do the throw async function? Throw in maybe exception
Can you elaborate that?
in the mocks where you're
Yeah.
mocking
Hmm.
email service dot mock and you're sending the objects, right? Line
Yeah.
number 28. Yeah. At
Yeah.
the end, dot
Yeah.
return dot throws instead of returns. If we
Yeah, so
add
we are
that,
that's what the point. We are not using returns over here because there is no return type for send method, right?
okay. No,
Yeah,
not the
but
returns, throws. Dot throws might be there, I think.
yes, so that is possible that you can use
Okay, yeah.
right now because my expectation is that it should be returning true false, not the exception. I don't want it to be reported to me. I just want it to be captured here, handled here, and it should be having the return value of true or false only. That's why I put it this way.
Okay,
Understood?
yeah.
So if I'm expecting exception, I'll use throws. In that
Okay,
case, you are right. Correct.
okay, yeah.
Because when we are creating a service layer, most likely we want to simplify the service layer for the end user, right? And we may not want exceptions always to be propagated, except the
Yeah.
crucial ones. Correct.
Yes.
So that's what I'm doing. I'm absorbing the exception and converting the return value to true or false. If all got true, if something not wrong or something not correct, then I'm returning false. Understood?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just rerun the test.
And one question, Saket.
Yeah. Yeah.
So every time we are testing with any type, right? Any string,
Yeah.
any object. So is it? I mean, which one would be the good practice if specific or a generic? Like we can send a valid data as well, right?
You
So
can. You can. You can.
so which one would you recommend? Like which one would be the best practice to?
See, when your test is not depending on the specific values, why to pass the specific values? It
Okay.
can
In
be
case,
any dummy data, right? So in that case, any is good. But yeah, if you are using the dependency injection, in that case, I would recommend to go with the real data. Understand?
okay. Okay. And also, if you could help, explain about mocking a static class, how we can do
Yeah.
in some scenario, it will be really helpful.
Okay.
Static class or static method.
Okay. Just give me a moment.
Sure.
Have a look at this. Suppose there is a class, my static class. I'll use mock object like this. Now compare this with our code. If it is not a static class, you need real object, right? So you pass the real object type there. For static class also, it is the same thing, but it doesn't create the object. It just uses the static setup there, nothing else. Then we go for the static methods, quite similar to what we did. So once again, let's say do something is the static method, which returns me some value. Then static property is configured like this. Okay. And the verification method is like this. Okay.
Okay, we can
So
directly
not
give mock of this static.
yes. So it by default knows that it's a static class. I need not actually instantiate it.
But still,
Right?
we are writing new of mock, right? Here, the first
Because
line.
the mock object will be created, which sets up the context for the static class. Basically, static class, even that requires some memory allocation, isn't it?
Yeah. So you're saying like there won't be any difference mocking
Yes,
static and
correct,
non-static one.
correct.
Internally, it will be
Yes, it will just take care of.
take care of.
Yeah.
Okay. How about a static class when it comes from any third party? Suppose if we are calling from third party
Mhm,
library methods in library, static methods from third party library, that
mhm.
also here also we can do the similar way.
Same thing, same thing. Because see, ultimately you are just creating a dummy. You might be having the reference to that third party library, but the functionality may not be yet ready. So mock will do rest of the things for providing the mock functionality. But the structure is required, or else you can create the dummy classes, what we call as stubs in that case, when the library itself is not available at all.
Okay.
So stubs
Okay.
will be used in that
You
case.
can use stubs for unit testing, is it?
Correct, correct, correct.
Okay.
I mean, the dummy static class will be created with the same name, same structure, but it will not have the real code. Correct?
Yeah, yeah, understood.
It will
But
be more
actually,
of a simulation only.
okay. But I remember I faced some challenge while mocking static class, but I don't remember
Mhm,
what exactly I faced the issue. But it was not actually. I felt that it is similar way as that of non-static class. But
mhm.
okay, you're saying it's the same thing. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so time for a break here. We'll be resuming at 11:15. Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, guys, I'm back. Shall we proceed?
Hi, sure.
Okay. So one more example we'll see here. So let's say here we have in the main project, which contains the real code. I just say right click, add new item. And I'm looking for an interface by the name iLogger. Add. Let's make this interface public. And what it has got is a single member void log that takes in string message. Fine. This interface might be the part of some other assembly also. I mean, a different class library. Okay. Let's right click on the project again, say add class. I named this class as logger manager. Make this class public. It has got a private read-only member, iLogger by the name logger. There is a constructor which takes an iLogger as dependency being injected and assigns it to the read-only member. This dot logger equals to logger. Then I have public void log message method as a member, which takes in string message as the parameter, where I say logger.log message. So I have a clear dependency on a type that implements logger. Maybe something that I create, maybe a third party logger API, right? Simplified version of the previous demo. Yes, I want to test this method log message. So for that, I go to my test project, right click on it, add class. Let's name this as logger manager tests. Let's make it a public class. Let's import xunit. Let's import mock and let's create our fact. That is the test method. Public void. Our main method to be tested has got a name log message, so I use the same name. Underscore tests or test. I can also name it like what it is doing. So maybe I can say calls logger. Logger means logger service that implements iLogger. Here I go for var logger mock equals new mock iLogger. Next I say var logger manager equals new logger manager based on logger mock.object string message, let's say, is set to test message. And then the action. This is all arrange. Now the portion that I'm writing is act. Let's say logger manager dot log message. And then comes the assertions. Third A, where I say logger mock dot verify. Verify method basically checks whether the dependency service was called or not. So logger goes in logger.log message. At least once at least and at most it should be called once. So I say times dot once. We have at least once also. What at least once means? It may be called more number of times, but at least once it should be called. If I want it to be called minimum 3 number of times, I can say times dot at least, and then I can give the number. And let's save, let's build solution. Let's open the test explorer. Here it must have detected your new logger test also. This time it's more important because I don't want all the tests to be conducted. The previous ones are working. Logger and log. This is what I want to test. So I right click on this logger manager test and say run. It says passed. Now point is I didn't use any assertion. I just used verify, right? Here I'm calling logger manager.log message where logger manager is my own class only. Now, if this doesn't call the dependency service log method, will the test pass? I go to test explorer again, and here I rerun this. This time it fails. So technically verify is also a type of assertion, which makes sure that the dependency service must be called. Got my point? To make this work again, I actually need to make a call to the dependency service. Run it. This time it should get passed. Got it?
Yes. Can you show that interface, Sanket?
Yeah, sure. It's a simple one.
Sanket, but we have not implemented this log, so how it is
That's okay.
working?
That's okay. That's where we are using mock now. Real usage
No,
of mock is visible here. This logger interface being implemented by another team, which is not done yet. It's not available. Implementation is not yet available. And I am writing this logger manager class. I don't want to wait for that team to complete the logger implementation. Hence, I am making use of mock. It creates a dummy object for me. Understand?
yes, yes.
That's what we discussed, right?
Yeah.
So this is my logger manager. This is my class. iLogger will be implemented by someone else who is not done yet. So just remember that. Otherwise, if it is done, I would do the testing directly on the real implementation. Why I need to run the testing on or test code on the mock in that case? Correct? Got it?
Yes, Sanket.
Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. Testing strategies. So what are the different testing strategies that we discussed? In agenda, I mentioned some. First is boundary testing. What was the second one? Equivalence. Class partitioning. And third was mutation testing. Right? These are all different testing strategies for unit testing only. We actually work with or use the different testing strategies in order to design and execute the test cases more and more effectively with the goal of identifying defects and ensuring the software quality. Right? So these are the most common testing strategies used by the industry. So let's talk about the purpose of boundary testing first of all. Boundary testing focuses on testing the boundaries or limits of input values and conditions. So just like as I explained one of the case, int add is the method to be tested, which takes in two integers. So purpose is to take in two integers and return their sum. It says return a plus b. So if I pass 30, 20, this is going to produce the result as 50. Right? What if the maximum value for 32-bit integer I pass over here, which is 2 raised to the power 32 minus 1, right? I say add 2 raised to the power 32 minus 1 as first parameter. Now, second parameter could be as big as this, or it could be just 1 or 10 also. What would happen? Does it crash? Does it throw exception? Does it just goes for overflow? The purpose of testing is to check all the conditions. What happens when I give the extreme values? My code should never crash. If this situation is arising, my business or my domain says that it should be throwing an exception, then it should throw exception. If my business says that, okay, I will allow overflow, underflow here, then it should do it accordingly. Right? It should never crash. That's where the boundary testing works. Understood? Case might be like I have an array which can take up 1000 elements into it. What would happen if I pass an array with 101 elements or 1001 elements? That is also the extremity or boundary testing? Yes or no?
Yes.
So, what exactly we do while designing the test cases? The test cases are designed to exercise the system at the extreme boundaries of its input domain, which includes the testing values at the lower and upper limits, lower bound and upper bound, basically, as well as beyond those limits also. What if I pass the extreme value, not extreme value only, but a value beyond extreme value also? In any case, my code should not fail. It should just handle, right? So that is boundary test. Test the limits. Like when a vehicle is manufactured, the engine has a capacity. Engine has a maximum torque. Engine has a maximum RPM. Engine has a maximum speed. I mean, the vehicle has a maximum speed. So while doing the quality testing, they actually take it to the maximum level. Engine just should keep on performing without troubling the user. So that's what we call as boundary testing. Engine running at maximum supported speed and in extreme weather conditions also. Extreme cold, extreme hot. My engine should be prepared for all situations. If I want to make my vehicle a fail-proof vehicle in all weather conditions. Yes or no? Should I be testing to the limits or not? Or beyond limits or not? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Now what is equivalence class partitioning? It helps identify the representative test cases by dividing the input domain into equivalence classes. It assumes that if one test case in an equivalence class reveals a defect, other test cases in the same class will likely reveal similar defects. So add and subtract. I tested this for limits for add and I got a defect found over there. It is not it is not working as per expectations. So I expect the same behavior for subtract also, because subtract is taking similar input, giving similar output. So the same behavior what add test performed should be performed by subtract test also, multiply test also, divide test also, and so on. That's what equivalence class partitioning talks about. That actually eases out the implementation of test cases or test methods, right? So for this, what we can do is we can group the input values into classes. So instead of passing int a comma int b directly over here in the test case, I can actually say there is a class input which has got public int a, public int b, and the instance of this class I'll be giving as input. Understand? So like there is one example here. So suppose I'm looking to test a username input field. I might create the equivalence class for the valid usernames like short usernames, long usernames, usernames with special characters, even invalid usernames like empty string or usernames with spaces which may not be allowed by my domain requirement. I can create an equivalence class for it. And here itself, I can put the conditions that this A should be having these values. If the other value is provided, that is basically treated as the beyond limit or at limit value. So there should be clear definition for this. Understood? Yes.
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 Okay. Okay. Now let's move on to the next thing, that is mutation testing. What is it? It is a kind of a strategy that actually involves introducing intentional defects, which we call as mutations, into the code, and then running tests to check if those defects are being caught or not. So this actually helps assess the effectiveness of the test cases. Okay. So how do we introduce this mutation testing? For this, basically to create the mutations, we modify the source code. I'm sorry. Modify the source code a bit, like maybe changing an operator or maybe by removing a line of code, causing the intentional bug. I mean, the code which contains intentional logical mistakes. Then we run the test cases to see if the test case fails to detect the changes or mutations. Right?
Okay.
Okay. So this is easy one, mutation testing. It is just like explicitly causing the code to fail. We just tried that over here by introducing the exception in our last demo, the email sender thing. So let me show you that. We put some condition, right? Either to return false explicitly or to throw exception. I changed it a bit for a different reason. But yeah, that's what basically the mutation testing is. Just to see whether my test is working properly and detecting the defects properly or not. Even the boundary testing is easy. the input values which you gave, they should be taken care of on its own as per the expectations. So there is nothing special required for the same. But when it comes to equivalence class testing, there is a different approach. We need something to be done which actually brings in the equivalence class testing, right? So let's create one example for the same. Let me close all the non-required things in the same project. Here I say there is a class by the name discount calculator. It's a public class, contains a method calculate discount, which is public and returns double. Name is calculate discount, takes in a parameter age of type integer based on which the discount will be calculated. Here I have some logical code. If age is less than 0, which is invalid age, right? Not acceptable. So what I want here is it should throw an exception. So here I say throw new argument exception with the message going in as age can't be negative. Okay. Then if age is less than 18, so that technically means from 0 to less than 18. I want the discount percentage to be returned as 0.2. That means 20% for children. Else if age is greater than equal to 18 and age is less than 65, the discount to be returned is, let's say 0.1 means 10% for adults. Else, anyone who is beyond 65, who is 65 or beyond 65, I want to give 30% discount. So I say 0.3 is returned from here. Understood?
Yes.
So now here we want to apply the equivalence class partitioning to test this function, for which we will divide the input values into different equivalence classes. Age less than 0 for invalid input, age between 0 and 17 child category, age between 18 and 64 adult category, age 65 and above senior category. Now this equivalence class can be created as a class input that will require your source code to be changed. Instead of, integer, I would be required to change it to accept some class or something. So most of the frameworks have come up with their extra tooling for creating the equivalence class. Now, most of the tools in .NET are attribute based. So there are some attributes that are provided which automatically creates the equivalence class for you behind scenes, which means I need not change this code. Understand? So let's create a test case with equivalence class implementation with the help of those attributes here. So here in the test project, I right click, add class by the name discount calculator tests. Add. Let's make the class public. Import couple of namespaces on the top. Basically one only I need, xunit. And then first I'll write my method, then the attributes I'll configure. So public void calculate discount underscore returns correct discount is the name of this test method that takes in age as input. First time I'm using a parameterized test method, right? Till now, we used all the methods which are not parameterized. Yes or no? I hope everyone understands this.
Yes.
There is a change here, correct? Here goes my first A, arrange. So I say var calculator equals new discount calculator. I'm not using mock in this case because my uh, discount calculator service doesn't have any dependency, right? Then act. So here I say var discount equals to calculator dot calculate discount age. Then the assertions. So here I say if age is less than 0, assert dot throws. I'm expecting argument exception. With a lambda expression, I want to do something. So no parameters goes in calculator dot calculate discount age. So this call must throw an exception of type argument exception if age is less than 0. Else if age is less than 18. Different type of assertion I'm looking for. So here I say assert dot equal. What is the discount that we are looking for here? 0.2, that is 20%, right? Actual expected value. Then comes the actual value that has been received. And then the tolerance value. So it could be somewhere near also, right? So instead of 0.2, it might come up as 2 also. So that is 2% or 20%, something like that. Okay. So by default, tolerance is taken as 1. So how much tolerance is there in terms of percentage? So if not exactly 0.2, it could be little less, little more also. And that value is something which should be not less than 2% of the value that we are expecting, or not more than 2% of the value that we are expecting. So this is like error percentage. So I might have something like 0.199. That is okay. Or 0.202. That is also okay. 20.2 is fine. Okay. Next is else if age is greater than equal to 18 and age is less than 65. One more input on tolerance. This is required when you are working with the decimal numbers. So maybe double, maybe float, maybe decimal, right? So that's where the tolerance has to be there, because sometimes because of rounding off also the values come differently, slightly here and there. So that's where the tolerance will help. It will not just make fail because the value is not exactly matching. Okay. Here I go with the assertion. Equality assertion once again. For this range, the expected discount is 0.1, that is 10%. The actual discount is discount and tolerance level of 2% basically. Else, the fourth condition, again is an assertion for equality. I'm expecting 0.3, that is 30%, comma. The expected is discount. Actual is discount and tolerance level of 2 once again. Remember, whenever you are giving tolerance, it should be consistent across different calls. Understood? Now comes the real thing, that is equivalence class configuration. So for this, first of all, because there are multiple assertions here being used, I say this is not fact, this is rather theory. And with theory, I need to have different test data also compulsorily passed, which will go to this parameter age. Here I say the first data item is inline data -1. That is for invalid input. Then I say inline data 0. Then I say inline data 5. Then I say inline data 17. 0, 5, and 17 is for kids category. Then several input values for adult category I'll give. So inline data, let's say 18. Then again inline data, let's say the next value to be tested is 30. One more inline data. Let's say the value to be tested is 64. Lowest and highest value I have included in all the test cases. Right? In between, you have your call, whatever value you want to give. Then for senior category, I say inline data 65. This is lowest. There is no highest value defined for this. So I need not go up to highest. Maybe this could be our last. Let's say this is 70. So practically this method, the test method, is going to run these many number of times. Around 9 or 10 values I've given, right? So it will run 9 or 10 times. Once for each of the inline data value. And all of them should succeed in order to get successful report, green report. If even one of them is failing, it will return as the test has failed. Understood? Let's go to the test explorer. If it is already open, you can just go to it, or else You can once again take it from test explorer. Here it has found the discount test case. Right click on it and say run. It says 8 passed, 1 failed. And if I click on this one error, it probably would show which one is failing. Age is -1. Argument exception. Age cannot be negative. It should have passed as well, in fact, because here we are already throwing argument exception, and here we are expecting argument exception as well. So it should have worked. What's wrong here? Just hold on, just checking what's wrong here. Argument exception. Here also we are looking for argument exception only. Should be no issue. It's wrong. System dot argument exception. System dot argument exception only.
Sanket, it is possible
Yeah.
to debug and see.
Yeah. It's throwing exception, but still it is not asserting correctly. So see the call has come here for -1 and it's throwing the exception correctly. There is no issue with that. This time it should be 64. Yeah. So this is the second one. So ideally this assertion must have worked. If this is working, there is no reason why it should not work. We're throwing argument exception and it is what we are checking. Okay, so got it. There seems to be a change in the behavior here for this X unit. Practically, this was working, but as this call was placed before this assertion, here also the call was being made with -1 as the input, and that was failing. Understand? So what I did, I got this condition evaluated first, and there I said return, don't execute the method further to make the call to calculate discount again. This part of the code should run if and only if zero or more value is passed for this integer. If it is less than zero, it should be terminated here only. And that's how it is getting passed now. Clear?
Yes, understood.
Right. So earlier this used to be taken care of on its own. I don't know why this change has been made, because now this requires additional configuration as such. So I'm not pretty much happy with this, but yeah, that is how it is. So until and unless the next update doesn't come and uh, change this behavior to the original default behavior, we have to take this, right? So this was equivalence class partitioning. This inline data is actually preparing your inline class data, this attribute. Understood? And whenever you want the parameterized test methods, fact cannot be used. You have to use theory. Clear?
Can you go to the discount calculator? There you made any changes? Discount
No,
calculator.
the original discount calculator is there as it is. There is no change here. I just changed my test method.
So the line number 32, you
Yeah,
put it back.
I moved this. This was before this if statement, right? And here we had else if. So that else if changed to if here. This declaration and the call to calculate discount brought down after this if statement. And additionally, in this if statement, I put the return statement. So these are the changes.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions so far?
No.
No.
Okay. So in fact, the next topic, which is code coverage, is a little bit bigger. So I feel that we should be taking it in the next session on Friday. We'll end the session today here itself, and we'll continue with the rest of the things in the next session on Friday. Okay. So
Okay.
code coverage and some more complex examples we'll try to look at, along with the asynchronous code being tested as well. So three things pending from the testing, unit testing. Okay. So that's it. See you again on Friday at 9:30 a.m. Bye till then.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.